At the heart of the Catholic tradition, among the countless sacred symbols that have spanned the centuries, few carry as much spiritual and historical weight as the ring of the fisherman. More than a jewel, more than an ornament, it is a material testimony of a promise made 2,000 years ago on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. There, a simple fisherman named Simon was chosen by Jesus for a great mission. "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Matthew 16:18. Peter, the first of the apostles, the first bishop of Rome, would become the visible foundation of a faith destined to reach the ends of the earth. And it is from this vocation as a fisher of souls that the most intimate symbol of papal authority is born, the Fisherman's Ring. During the first centuries of Christianity, the church was still persecuted and lived in hiding. There were no crowns, thrones, or official insignia. Power lay in martyrdom, in unshakable faith, in blood, shed in the name of Christ. It was only many centuries later, when Christianity was established as the official religion of the Roman Empire, that the Church began to adopt visible symbols to affirm its mission and authority. Among them, the Fisherman's Ring would emerge. The first documented record of the use of the ring dates back to the 13th century, during the papacy of Clement IV. According to historical accounts, Clement instituted the ring as a personal seal, used to authenticate private letters. The ring was engraved with the image of St. Peter fishing in a boat, a direct representation of Christ's calling. The ring, therefore, carried not only the Pope's institutional authority, but also the eternal reminder that above all human structures, he was first and foremost a humble fisherman of souls. For centuries, the Fisherman's Ring was not merely symbolic. It had a practical function. When the Pope wanted to send personal or private documents, he did not use the large official seal of the Roman Curia. Instead, he sealed the letter with hot wax and pressed his ring onto it, authenticating its contents. This gesture gave the ring tremendous power. A document sealed with the Fisherman's Ring had the force of the Pope's own word. It was, in fact, a physical extension of his voice, his judgment, his will. Over time, and especially after the advent of the printing press and new methods of document authentication, the practical function of the ring was abandoned. Today, it remains a spiritual and ceremonial symbol, but its historical weight remains immense. Every detail of the Fisherman's Ring has a meaning. The image of Peter in the boat reminds the Pope that he is the successor of a humble fisherman called to cast the nets of faith over the world. The material of the ring, traditionally made of solid gold, representing purity and spiritual royalty. The act of receiving the ring itself, a solemn moment in the inauguration ceremony of the new Pope, sealing his commitment to the apostolic mission. By placing the Fisherman's Ring on his finger, the Pope assumes the responsibility of guiding the Church, not as an earthly sovereign, but as a servant of the servants of God. He accepts being the shepherd of the sheep, the tireless fisherman, in search of souls. Although the concept of the Fisherman's Ring has remained the same, its designs have changed over the centuries. Some rings were extremely ornate, studded with precious stones. Others more simply preferred to emphasize the image of the boat and the fishing net. During the pontificate of some popes, especially in the Middle Ages, the ring also came to symbolize the temporal power of the Church over territories and kingdoms. Over time, however, the spiritual emphasis returned to predominate. In the 21st century, Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis opted for more discreet rings, reflecting a personal preference for simplicity and evangelical humility. The Fisherman's Ring therefore tells not only the history of the Church, but also the character of each pope, pomp and glory for some, discretion and service for others. The Fisherman's Ring is presented during the ceremony to begin the pontificate after the election in the conclave. At this moment, in front of cardinals, bishops, and faithful from all over the world, the new pope receives the ring as a sign of his new office. It is an emotional moment. History, mission, and the weight of responsibility are condensed into a small gold object. Kissing the ring. For the first time, the Pope publicly expresses his acceptance of God's call. It is also a silent reminder. Just as Peter was weak and denied Christ, he too is a man, subject to failures. But by God's grace, he is called to shepherd the flock. The Fisherman's Ring is much more than a golden object. It is the material manifestation of an invisible mission, the mission to continue Christ's work on earth, guiding, teaching, and loving. That is why when a pope dies, the first gesture is, the symbolic is to break his ring, to remember that authority does not belong to man, but to the mission he temporarily served. Thus, the story of the Fisherman's Ring is also the story of Christian humility. Men pass away, but faith remains. The sun had not yet risen over the golden domes of the Vatican when, inside St. Peter's Basilica, a silent and deeply symbolic ceremony began, the ritual of breaking the Fisherman's Ring. Few traditions of the Catholic Church are as charged with hidden meaning as this one. At first glance, breaking a ring may seem like a practical act, but in reality, it is a gesture that ends a spiritual and political cycle, paves the way for a renewal of leadership, and preserves the integrity of the faith. The death of a pope marks the beginning of a period called sede vacante, a Latin term meaning empty chair. The chair of Peter, the ultimate symbol of spiritual leadership, is now without an occupant. During this period, papal authority is suspended. No doctrinal decisions can be made. All offices in the Roman Curia are automatically terminated, except for certain exceptions. It is a time of mourning, but also of preparation. The entire Catholic world anxiously awaits the next steps, the confirmation of the death, the organization of the funeral, and most importantly, the convening of the conclave that will elect the new pope. But before all this can happen, there is a ritual that must be fulfilled, the breaking of the Fisherman's Ring. The central figure in this process is the Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church. The Camerlengo is the cardinal appointed to administer the church during the sede vacante. He is the one who officially verifies the death of the Pope, traditionally by calling his name out loud 3 times before the lifeless body. Temporarily assumes control of the church's assets, and in a solemn manner supervises the destruction of the Fisherman's Ring. This extremely delicate function requires not only authority, but also profound respect for the traditions of the Church. As soon as the Pope's death is confirmed, the Camerlengo takes possession of the Fisherman's Ring. The breaking ceremony takes place in a discreet and highly ritualized manner. In a private room in the Vatican, often attended by only a few cardinals and officials curia, the ring is brought in, resting on a dark velvet cushion. The Camerlengo, in front of witnesses, uses a silver hammer, a tool specifically. For this purpose, with a firm but reverent blow, the hammer strikes the ring, irreversibly deforming it. This is not just a matter of physically destroying it, it is a symbolic gesture. The breaking represents the end of the authority of the deceased pope and prevents the ring from being used to forge documents in his name after his death. The ring of the fisherman, as we have seen, is a seal of spiritual authority. Breaking. It means declaring to the world that the reign of that pope has ended. This gesture carries multiple meanings. End of a cycle. No human authority is eternal. Prevention of abuse prevents false documents from being issued. Humility reminds us that all human power is temporary before God. Furthermore, breaking the ring reminds us that the Pope although the visible head of the church is first and foremost a servant, and that now his soul returns to the presence of God. The process of the destruction of the Fisherman's Ring may vary depending on the Pope and the Camerlengo, but generally follows these steps. Identification of the ring. Confirm that the object is the true Fisherman's Ring used in the Pontificate. Public act in front of official witnesses to guarantee the validity of the rite. Use of the silver hammer. Traditionally, the hammer is ornate and reserved for this function only. Symbolic blow. The aim is not to pulverize the ring, but to visibly render it useless by breaking, cracking, or deforming it. Official record. A document is drawn up attesting to the breakage and filed in the annals of the church. Sometimes the ring is struck more than once, if the first impact is not sufficient. In recent times, some adaptations have occurred. Instead of a violent break, an incision or controlled deformation may be made. The ring may be kept after its symbolic destruction as a historical piece in the Vatican archives. Some ceremonies have been simplified to avoid media misunderstandings about the gesture. However, the essential meaning of the break remains unchanged. The public recognition that the Pontificate has officially come to an end. Despite its apparent simplicity, the ritual is enveloped in profound silence. There is no music. There are no long speeches. Just the dry sound of the hammer breaking the ring and the invisible echo of 2,000 years of history. Many describe this moment as one of the most moving within the Vatican pomp. There, it is summed up in seconds. The weight of duty fulfilled, humility in the face of death, the continuity of faith that never ceases. The breaking of the Fisherman's Ring is one of the Church's most discreet rituals, but also one of its most powerful. While the outside world mourns and prepares public tributes, inside the Vatican, a small hammer strikes. The golden seals the end of an era. What remains is not just a damaged ring, but an eternal message. The Church, founded by Christ, transcends the men who serve in it. And so, the way is opened for the election of a new successor to Peter and for the continual renewal of the mission of bringing the faith to the ends of the earth.